book reading of the new path. As always, Swamiji has uh, filled this chapter with so many insights. Hope we are able to do some justice to it. But as always, let's start the session with invoking the presence of God and Gurus here with us. Divine Mother, Heavenly Father, Friend, Beloved God, Guru Preceptors, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswarji, Beloved Gurudev, Paramhansa Yogananda Ji, Saints and sages of all religions, dear friend and guide, Swami Kriyananda, humbly we bow at thy feet. Dear Master, be with us here today as we read this chapter. Help us to assimilate the teachings, the insights that this chapter provides. And may we be able to live our life every moment according to the teachings as presented by you and Swami Kriyananda. Guide us, bless us. Help us to be in attunement always with thy consciousness. We are thine, be thou eternally ours. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we will do this chant, and as we read, maybe not in the next session, you will realize why we did this chant. Master talks about this Om Kali. Sitting up straight, gazing up at the point between the eyebrows. Tensing the whole body with double inhalation, holding the breath, letting go. Couple of times more. Tuning into the Divine Mother aspect of God, the Kali, the creation, the manifestation. As Master said in this chapter, he says, this is the kingdom of Om. Listen, it is not enough just to hear it. You must merge yourself in that sound. Om is the Divine Mother. Om Kali, Om Kali, Om Kali. Listen, he paused again. Oh, how beautiful it is. Om Kali, Om Kali, Om Kali. Just tune into this. Feel that vibration. Om Kali, all around you and within you. This is not just a name for the Divine Mother, as Master says. That is the sound he heard when he heard the sound of Om. Om Kali, Om Kali. Visualize her. Feel her. Breathe in every aspect of your entire being. Feel her presence within and without, reverberating through us, each one of us. The vibration of Om Kali, the Divine Mother aspect that pervades this whole universe. The more we are calm, inward, the more we will be able to tune into this. She doesn't reveal herself in the noise of this world. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we have just seen Swamiji, the last chapter where he was trying to get acclimatized, being a new monk, trying to understand how the ashram works, trying to understand the teachings, because he's very new. He's not even learned the lessons also. It just came. So now slowly he's trying to understand everything. And as we all notice that even as, the first time itself, Master not only just accepted him into the fold, but also, accepted him as a monk who can live in the ashram right away. So, and he also said, I'm doing this because Divine Mother told me to, right? Master never did anything that he didn't have a divine sanction to it. And he also said that your karma is very good. So here is Swamiji, and now we get into the chapter 20, 29 palms, that retreat where Master used to go off to when he would want to have some seclusion to write his books for the world.
"20, 29 palms. You must keep this place a secret," Bernard warned me, as we drove into 29 palms. With the rapid growth of the work, Master needs a place where he can go to concentrate on his writings. Otherwise, it's telephone calls and interviews all day long. He's even bought the property in his family name, Ghosh, to safeguard his privacy. This was the first time I'd ever seen a desert. The vast wasteland of sand, sagebrush, Joshua trees, and tumbleweed held a strange fascination for me. It seemed a different dimension, as though time here had slipped imperceptibly into timelessness. The sky, pastel hues of blue, pink, and orange-yellow in the waning afternoon sunlight, looked almost ethereal. I gazed about me in wonder. Bernard noted my expression. "I see the desert's magic is working on you already." He added, "Master says the light here resembles the astral light." The monks' retreat, at which we arrived soon afterward, was a small cottage on some 15 acres of land. It was without electricity. A tall windmill creaked and clanked complainingly with every breeze as it pumped water up from a well. A grove of blue-green smoke trees hid the cottage from the seldom-travelled sand road. Even with the windmill, which seemed determined to go public with news of how hard it was made to work, this seemed a perfect spot for seclusion and meditation. Over the coming years I was to spend many months in these tranquil surroundings. Master's place was 5 miles up the road. Located in a more developed area, it had city water and electricity, which he needed since he did much of his writing at night. His property nestled near the base of a range of low hills, which, because of their barrenness, looked almost like a more distant mountain range. Master's house had pale stucco walls in the Spanish style, typical of Southern California. Surrounding it were a profusion of plants and delicate Chinese elms. The entire property, enclosed by a low wire fence, was 1 or 2 acres in size. My first visit to 29 Palms was for a weekend. We visited Master at his place. My first recollection of him on that occasion isn't so much of the things he said as of what he didn't say. I didn't know it at the time, but he placed great importance on silence. Disciples working around him were permitted to speak only when necessary. Silence, he said, is the altar of spirit. Master was seated out of doors by the garage. Bernard and I were standing nearby. Master asked Bernard to go into the house and fetch something. Suddenly, for the first time since my acceptance as a disciple, I found myself alone with my guru. It seemed an opportunity not to be missed, a chance to learn something, anything. Master evidently didn't see it in the same light. He made no move to speak. Finally, I decided I'd better break the ice. I had learned from Bernard how to commune inwardly with Om, the cosmic sound, which manifests itself to the yogi in deep meditation. "Sir," I inquired, "what does Om sound like?" Master gave a prolonged mmm. He then reverted comfortably to silence. To me, alas, his silence was anything but comfortable. "How does one hear it?" I persisted, though I already knew the technique. This time Master didn't even bother to answer, but simply assumed the prescribed position. After holding it briefly, he returned his hand silently to his lap. Some months later, I told him I was having trouble calming my breath in meditation. "That," he replied, "is because you used to talk a lot. The influence is carried over." "Well," he added consolingly, "you were happy in that." Silence is the altar of spirit. As I grew into my new way of life, I began to value this maxim. Soon after our first visit to 29 Palms, Bernard drove Norman and me out there again. Master had devised a project for the two of us to work on, probably to give us an excuse to be near him while he concentrated on his writings. He asked us to build him a small swimming pool behind the house near his bedroom. It was not that he particularly wanted a pool. In fact, once it was finished, he never used it. But it did give Norman and me the opportunity to be with him for weeks at a time. Soon we were busy shoveling out a deep hole in the sand. Master, taking an occasional break from his writing, would come out and work with us for 15 minutes or so. Whenever he did so, I felt a deep blessing. But I hadn't yet adjusted to his habitual silence. One warm, sunny afternoon, I noticed that he was panting slightly with the physical exertion, and remarked conversationally, "It's hot work, isn't it?" "It is good work." Master gazed at me a moment as if with reproach, then returned in silence to his digging. Gradually, inspired by his example, I learned to speak less and to listen more to the soundless whispers in my soul. Late one afternoon we were sitting with Master on a little porch outside the sitting room where he dictated his writings. After several minutes of silence, Master posed me an unexpected question. "What keeps the earth from shooting out into space away from the sun?" Surprised and not as yet familiar with the cryptic way he often taught us, I assumed he simply wanted a lesson in astronomy. "It's the sun's gravitational pull, sir," I explained. "Then what keeps the earth from being drawn back into the sun?" "That's the earth's centrifugal force, pulling it constantly outward. If the sun's gravity weren't as strong as it is, we'd shoot off into space, out of the solar system altogether." Master smiled significantly. Had he intended more than I realized? Some months later I recalled this conversation and understood that he had been speaking metaphorically of God as the sun, drawing all things back to himself, and of man as the earth, resisting with desires and self-interest the pull of divine love. One hot day at noon, Norman and I stood up from our digging and stretched, grateful that lunchtime had arrived at last. We enjoyed our work, but there was no denying that it was also tiring. Besides, we were famished. Briefly we surveyed the yawning pit at our feet. "God, what a hole!" exclaimed Norman. We gazed out over the mounds of sand we'd deposited about the grounds with the wheelbarrow. The very sight of them, lumped about in mute testimony to our exertions, only reinforced our fatigue. At that moment Master came out and joined us. "Those mounds don't look very attractive," he remarked. "I wonder if they couldn't be leveled out. Would one of you mind fetching a 2x4? Armed with the board, we stood before him a little apprehensively, awaiting further instructions. "Each of you take the 2x4 at one end," Master said. "Then just come over to this mound here. Pull the sand back toward you by pressing down hard on the board and moving it slowly back and forth between you." Probably even this meager description suffices to convey some idea of how difficult the job was. By the time we'd leveled one mound, Norman and I were panting heavily. Well, we reflected, at least we'd demonstrated that it could be done. Master, his curiosity satisfied, would no doubt tell us to go now and have our lunch. "Very good," he commented approvingly. "I thought that method would work. Now then, why don't we try it just once more on that mound over there?" Adjusting our expectations accordingly, we started in a second time. "Very good," Master commented once again, evidently not wishing to place obstacles in the way of the momentum we'd built up. He said, "Let's do just one more, this one over here." And after that, one more, and then again, just one more. I don't know how many mounds we leveled, but Norman, strong as he was beginning to moan softly under his breath. "Just one more," Master said again. Suddenly, getting the joke at last, I stood up and laughed. Master smiled back at me. I was playing with you. Now, go have your lunch. Often in his training of us, he would push our equanimity to the limit to see which way we would break. If we rebelled, or if under the strain we grew upset, it meant we had failed the test. But if we responded with an extra spurt of energy and affirmed a bright, positive attitude, we found his tests immeasurably strengthening. In the foregoing test, Master helped Norman and me to learn to resist the thought of fatigue. Curiously, I found I was actually less tired after leveling those mounds than I had been beforehand. The greater the will, as Master often said, the greater the flow of energy. One day, Norman and I sat down to lunch, ravenous as usual. We reached for the tray that had been set before us and gasped. It was practically empty. 2 cups of tepid water, faintly flavored with chocolate, and a couple of dry sandwiches that had perhaps been waved in the general vicinity of an open jar of peanut butter, and that was all. "What a banquet!" Norman cried in dismay. We paused a moment. Then suddenly we were both laughing. What comes of itself, Master often said, let it come. One of the keys he gave us to unshakable inner peace was an ability to accept life as it is. Our meager fare that day gave us adequate food for meditation, if not for our bodies. Shortly after the test of the 2x4, Master began inviting us indoors after hours to listen to him while he dictated his writings. The truths I learned during those sessions were invaluable. So also were a few of the lessons I received, some of them less weighty, during periods of relaxation when he wasn't dictating. As I've indicated earlier, the concept I had formed of a sage during my college years was of one to whom everything was a serious matter. I myself had laughed frequently, but it was more often at folly than in innocent joy. Like most college-trained intellectuals, my notion of wisdom tended to be rather dry. But until the intellect has been softened by heart qualities, it is like earth without water, weighty but infertile. Master was anxious to wean me from this addiction to an arid mental diet, even as I myself was anxious to be weaned. One evening Norman and I were sitting with him in the kitchen. Master summoned one of the sisters and asked her to fetch a brown paper bag with something in it from his bedroom. When she returned, he switched off the lights. I heard him remove something from the bag, then chuckle playfully. Suddenly there was a metallic buzzing sound as sparks came leaping out of a toy pistol. Laughing with childlike glee, Master turned the lights back on. Next, from another toy pistol out of the bag, he shot a tiny parachute into the air. We watched together gravely as it descended to the floor. I was utterly astonished. Master glanced at me merrily, though with a covert gaze of calm understanding. "How do you like them, Walter?" I laughed, trying earnestly to enter into the spirit of the occasion. "They're fine, sir." My comment was almost an affirmation. Looking at me deeply now, but with love, he quoted the words of Jesus Christ, "Suffer little children to come unto me, for of such is the kingdom of God." One of the most amazing things about Master was his complete inner freedom. In the deepest matters, he maintained the simplicity and light-hearted innocence of a child. In severe trials, he could find cause for joy. Yet even when he laughed, he retained the calm, detached outlook of one who beheld God alone everywhere. Often in the veriest trifles, he saw some deep truth illustrated. There was a dog at 29 Palms named Bojo, who belonged to a neighbor. Bojo had decided, since Master's retreat was untenanted much of the time, that it belonged within his rightful domain. On our first arrival, Bojo objected fiercely to Norman and me, growling and barking at us continually as we worked on the pool. It was Norman, finally, who won him over with a combination of roughhouse and love. Whenever Bojo barked, Norman would tumble him onto his back, then pat him and throw sticks for him to fetch. Soon our canine neighbor began visiting us as a friend. One day Bojo joined us out of doors for lunch. Bojo smelled the food and approached, sniffing hopefully. "Look at that dog," Master remarked, chuckling. He gave Bojo a little food from his plate. "Do you see how his forehead is wrinkled up? Though his thought is only for the food, in his earnest concentration, his mind is focused at the spiritual eye." During dictation one evening, Master touched on the subject of reincarnation. "Sir," I inquired, "have I been a yogi before?" "Many times," he replied. "You would have to have been to be here." At this time, Master began also revising his printed lessons. He was not able to get very far with them, unfortunately. The task proved simply too big, considering the many new writings he had in mind to complete. The first evening he worked on this project, Dorothy Taylor, his secretary, read to him from the old first lesson. She arrived at a passage where Master had said, "One can't get answers to scientific questions by merely praying for them. The appropriate experiments must be conducted also. Spiritual truths, similarly, so the lesson stated, require verification in the laboratory of yoga practice and of direct inner contact with God." Master interrupted her, shaking his head. "That's not completely true. If one prayed deeply enough, he would get answers, even to intricate scientific questions." He pondered the problem a while. "No," he concluded, "the point here concerns the need for verification by appropriate methods. In this sense, what has been written is valid, since prayer is effective in such matters only for those who already have some contact with God. I think I'll let it stand the way it is." In this way, paragraph by paragraph, he would analyze what had been written before, clarify certain portions, and deepen the import of others. The insights I received from him thereby were priceless. Impressive to me also was his manner of teaching. Universal in outlook, never self-assertive, conscious of the relationship to the broadest realities of whatever he was considering, he was, I realized more and more, a true guide to the infinite. I was struck also by the sheer dynamic courage of his teachings. Many a teacher would, I knew, be tempted to tone down what he said or wrote, as if hoping, by making them bland, to make them more popularly acceptable. But the hallmark of greatness is extraordinary energy, and such energy always poses a challenge to one-horsepower minds. I was amused some months later by an example of the tendency to try to level every peak of energy. I have mentioned how Master, in his early years in America, would sometimes actually run out onto the lecture platform, challenging his audiences to come up to his own level of divine enthusiasm. Even now, long since those campaign days, he began his Sunday worship services with the joyous demand, "How is everybody?" He then led his congregation in the vibrant response, "Awake and ready." Dr. Lloyd Gannell, his alternate minister in San Diego, a sincere and good man, couldn't match Master's high energy level. "I like to keep things on a moderate level," he explained to me before commencing his service one Sunday morning. He went out onto the stage. "Good morning," he began. "I trust that everyone present this morning is feeling awake and ready. No shouted response, of course. Master, more than any other teacher I have ever known, could stir people, shake them with the unexpected, charm them suddenly with a funny story, or startle them into alertness with some novel piece of information. Like Jesus, the words he uttered had the ring of truth. The veriest newcomer found his conviction irresistible. No one else would have dared it, but for the first lesson of his correspondence course, Master dictated a passage in support of his claim that a close karmic bond exists between our direct line of gurus and the great Master Jesus. Babaji, Lahiri Mahashai, and Sri Yukteswar, he dictated, were the three wise men who came to visit the Christ child in the manger. When Jesus became old enough, he returned their visit. The account of his trip to India was removed from the New Testament centuries later by sectarian prelates, who feared that its inclusion might lessen his stature in the eyes of the world. Footnote: the fact that the Bible says nothing at all about those missing 18 years offers the strongest possible evidence that the account of them was later deleted, for it is simply not credible that all four of the apostles would have omitted all mention of so large a segment of their Master's brief lifespan on earth. Even granting the possibility, which seems doubtful, that those 18 years were too uneventful to record, any conscientious biographer, not to mention a disciple, would never on any account have left out altogether even a bridging sentence. At the very least, he would have said something like, "And Jesus grew up and worked in his father's carpentry shop." The fact that nothing at all is said suggests the later work of priests, whose religious convictions inspired them to delete, but prevented them from being so brazen as to add words of their own. Master often talked to us of our line of gurus and their special mission in this age. For he was the last in a direct line of spiritual succession. What he taught represented no radical new theory, no Eastern counterpart to our own interminable scientific breakthroughs in the West, but the purest, highest, and indeed oldest spiritual tradition in the world. Babaji is the first in this direct line of gurus. A master of great antiquity, he still lives in the Badrinarayan section of the Himalayas, where he remains accessible to a few highly advanced souls. In the latter half of the 19th century, Babaji, feeling that in the present scientific age mankind was better prepared to receive higher knowledge, directed his disciple, Shyamacharan Lahiri, to reintroduce to the world the long-hidden, most central science of yoga. Lahiri Mahashaya, as his disciples called him, named this exalted science Kriya Yoga, which means simply divine union through a certain technique or spiritual act. Other yoga techniques bear the same name, but according to our own line of gurus, the Kriya Yoga of Lahiri Mahashaya is the most ancient and central of all yoga techniques. Babaji explained that it was to this technique that Lord Krishna, India's greatest ancient prophet, was referring in the Bhagavad Gita when he said, "I related this imperishable yoga to Vivaswat. Vivaswat taught it to Manu, the ancient Hindu lawgiver. Manu gave it to Ikshvaku, the renowned founder of the solar dynasty. In this way it was handed down in orderly succession to great sages until, after long stretches of time, knowledge of that yoga deteriorated in the world. Brackets, because the generality of mankind had lost touch with spiritual realities. Close brackets."
Wow, there is a lot lot of information in this. So, here we are where Swamiji and Norman, they both are the newest monks on the block, right? That is why they were also given a space in the Mount Washington, which was very, very basic. Whereas the other monks were living in the basement of the main building, and the nuns anyway were on the first floor and the second floor. But these two guys were in another section. Basically, I think for to watch them, to bring them in, and that is the reason somebody's this thing is on. Okay. So that is the reason they were, kind of being watched and being trained, basically. So here they are, where Bernard, one of the main monks, drives them, only these two guys, to go there at 29 Palms, right? The desert retreat of Master, where he used to go to, for some seclusion time, because when he's in the city, he's always, having to return calls, talk to people, meet people, write letters and all. So he needed that time in order to, bring in more stuff, because he also had a larger role to play, right? So what he says is, these two guys have been brought here. What is the purpose? He says, soon after our first visit, Bernard drove Norman and me out there. Master had devised a project for the two of us to work on, probably to give us an excuse to be near him while he concentrated. It wasn't like, where he brought them there so he can train them as such, give them instructions, talk to them. He wasn't doing anything of that sort. The mere presence near him would change their consciousness. The mere presence near the master, a self-realized master, and later on Swamiji talks like, he was trying to talk to him, and master was not even talking to him. What was he trying? How would these guys change? That is the power of a self-realized master. There are a lot of other gurus that we have heard, Moni Baba, right? They are munis who don't say anything at all, who don't talk. They are completely in silence, yet they had disciples. How do they communicate with the disciples? In silence. Just merely by their vibration, they are able to communicate much more than what we do, whole day. Even if we talk, all that we manage to create is, misunderstandings through words. But for them, there is no misunderstanding. They are in that state where just their vibration is enough to convert people, to bring the highest potential in the other person. So that is the reason these two young neophytes were brought. And he's saying that he had put them on a project of making a swimming pool, which he says near his bedroom. He says it was not that he particularly wanted a pool. In fact, once it was finished, he never even used it. He never used it. So it was just a reason that was created so that these boys can be around it. So that is very important. Why should we meditate? Why should we read these books about master? Why should we read autobiography of a yogi? Why should we have pictures of master around us? Because just that vibration, just being in that vibration, as master said, autobiography has my vibration in it. Even if we just open it and read one para a day, what is happening? It's changing our consciousness. It is bringing us in tune with the master. So that is the most important point. And when Swamiji is talking on his first visit, when they are doing something, and master comes out, and Swamiji for the first time finds himself alone, he says, with his guru. After being accepted as a disciple, he never got this opportunity. So he thought, oh, this is a good opportunity, let me talk to him. Because Swamiji is still very new. He didn't know much about this, that, master always insisted. Swamiji also said that, when visitors would come, master would be very charming. He would talk and they would tell the monks and the nuns, you guys are so lucky you're living around them. He said, if only they knew. Master never spoke to them. He never gave elaborate instructions. He always insisted, know me in your meditation, know me, don't get attached to this the shell, is what he said. Know me in your meditation. We want to know what Master. So for us also, now that we are on this path and Master is not in the body, right? He's not around. We can't just go to him and, talk to him. What Swamiji is trying to tell us that even in those days, somebody who is seriously on this path, that is the only way. You had to know his consciousness, you had to know his instruction, his guidance inwardly. And that is what each one of us has to also strive to. So Master is not in body, doesn't matter. He is there, he's all around us, ever ready to help us. We need to tune in. How? Meditate more. Being in silence, as Master said, silence is the altar of spirit. As Master also said that prayer is talking to God. Meditation is listening to God. And what is the language of the spirit? What is the language of God? Silence. And the more we are calm, the more we are, the thoughts are not there and the mind is completely calm, is when we can really hear. But we are constantly, so engaged with this world, the noise of this world, engaged through our senses, that we have lost or forgotten the ability to listen to the silence of the spirit, to the language of the spirit. And as that is why meditation is also called smriti, memory. We know it. All of us know it. We have forgotten because we're so charmed by the outside world. So here, Swamiji says, it seemed an opportunity not to be missed, a chance to learn something, anything. And basically what he was trying to say, he wasn't comfortable in that silence. He thought, Master is here, I shouldn't be quiet. So he's just asking him. He says, finally, I decided to break the ice. See, it felt like so uncomfortable. He said, I had to say something. So he asks him, what does Om sound like? And Master like, Then he again asked, Master just assumed the position. And that's about it. Then he didn't bother because he was giving him a lesson. And he says, some months later, I told him I was having trouble calming my breath in meditation. Does that sound familiar to each one of us? I'm having trouble calming my breath in meditation. I mean, as we come, to this path, the first thing we are taught is calming the breath through Hong Sau method. And many people are unable to get the purpose of Hong Sau is to bring us to a state of breathlessness, where we are not holding the breath, but we come to a state where there is no need for breathing. Breathing becomes completely shallow or almost not there. But as Swamiji said, if we are not able to reach there, which Swamiji also felt in the initial days, Master said that is because you used to talk a lot. The influence has carried over. But then he said, you were happy in that. Aren't we all happy in that? I mean, it's not like, this compulsive necessity to talk, and then we are so unhappy that we talk because we enjoy it. So Master again is not judging. He's not saying, oh, you're always talking. That's because you talk and you were happy in that. It's okay. I mean, but now that you're on this path, what should you do? Practice. Develop the habit of being silent. And, this is very interesting when Swamiji also says, that he felt he wasn't comfortable because he felt he had to break the ice. He had to talk. All of us also have that, when we are in a group, it's almost a necessity that we have to talk. So some months back, we had this silent retreat at the center. And once, it was just for a few hours we did. It wasn't even a full day one. And the thing was that even during the lunch time, we don't talk. We just, there should be the idea was not to even have eye contact. So when you walk into a room and somebody is coming in front of you, you don't look up and acknowledge even. Just be in words. So you don't have to have an eye contact. You don't have to talk just because you're sitting next to somebody. So concentrate on what you're eating. And after that, when we had this, a closing circle, one of these girls said that, it was very de-stressing for me. Just the fact that I'm sitting with people and I don't have to make efforts to talk to that person next to me or, in front of me. It was very relieved. I was feeling very relieved. This is also a stress for us, that when we are in people, that it is expected that I acknowledge that person. I have to talk to that person. So that is also stressful. So that is why it is a good idea to keep trying to practice seclusion, even in the house, even if we don't have to go off somewhere for weeks together or something. Even in the house, couple of hours a day, keep away the phone, keep away everything, switch off everything, and just being by yourself, um, being quiet. And when we say being quiet, also means the thoughts have to be brought under, they also need to be quiet, because even if we aren't around people, like the mind is chattering away to glory. So this is something it's a takeaway for us, that we practice it during this week, few hours. Start with half an hour, even if it doesn't work, a longer one, and then slowly work towards it. Work towards longer periods of absolute silence. So here he's saying, he's constantly trying, where he says is hard work and hot work, and master says no, it's good work. Again, master, he says, gradually, it is good work, he says. He gazed at me a moment as if with reproach, then returning in silence to his digging. So master is again and again bringing him back to that, stop this, don't have to keep talking, just be silent. So it is, becoming easier for him. He's actually now learning that you need to be silent around master. And then master one day, he says, asked him that question. We also saw it in the movie, the Answer movie, where master asked him, why does the earth go around the sun and doesn't get sucked into the sun? And then Swamiji says that he probably wants a lesson in astronomy. And then master says, oh, is that the case? Then why is it going around and not shoot off? And he says, oh, that is the centrifugal force. And he says, master smiled significantly. Master didn't, again, this is something very important. Master didn't sit down saying, oh, Walter, what are you saying? This is what it is. This is why I asked you a question. Master just let it go. And he says, months later, Swamiji says, I recalled this conversation and understood that he had been speaking metaphorically of God as the sun, drawing all things back to himself, and of man as the earth, resisting with desires and self-interest the pull of divine love. God, what is God? God is love. The gravity, the force of gravity, that is always like sun, as master is saying, sun, it is just metaphorically he's talking, sun as the God, and the gravity is the force of divine love. God is pulling us all back to himself. But why we are not coming into him, why we are not merging back into God, is because Maya, the force, Maya is, that is also a force of God only. Maya, the force, that's her job, to keep this world going. So she is pulling us away through our desires. So we are pulling off. We don't want to get back yet. We are finding this world very interesting. So we are pulling away, but God is not letting go. Otherwise, we would have shot off into complete darkness. He's still holding on. He's still trying to, bring us back. So that is God. That's what one of our talks, Devi ji said. He's talking about months later, he realized that, this could be why he could recollect that talk, because Swamiji was always thinking of what did master, of various things that master did or said. So this is again, the more we practice this, I mean, if we read this and okay, we finish, we close a book and go away. Or, we keep thinking back, oh, that was very interesting. That line seemed very nice. Going back, what would master have? Why did Swamiji write that? Keep going back to it. New things will come to us. What revealed to us is based on how much ever we are able to assimilate. But the more we keep thinking about it, it will start revealing itself. autobiography of a yogi. It will reveal itself. More deeper insights will come to us. Devi, Nayaswami Devi, in one of her talks, she said that years later, it wasn't even months, years later, one of she and Jyotishji and Swamiji were walking somewhere, and suddenly Swamiji stopped and said, that's what he meant. Years later. So it will come to us as we, to keep tuning into Master, and a lot of wisdom, a lot of insights will come to us, provided we are receptive. Swamiji was always, in that frame. So years later also, things dawned on him. And these things, as Master saying that about the sun and the earth, that it is all, he's saying that, the universe, everything that is manifested in the universe, the clues are all here. They're right here staring at us. We don't understand because our consciousness is not open enough or receptive enough to it. And I think it was the previous chapter, he said why we don't keep coming back to this planet, and we are planted in different planets based on our consciousness, because then you will find too soon, he says. Everything is here. The clues are God has planted for us. So when he's talking about sun and the earth and how this magnetism of the gravity, everything is there. Why we don't understand it? Because we aren't yet open to it. The clues are all planted. God has planted all the clues. So, okay. So here again, the next day when he's making them take a 2x4 and all the mounds, one more. He's saying, he said, till he kept pushing them. He was testing them. These are all young boys, new guys. He was testing them. How he said, often in his training of us, he would push our equanimity to the limit to see which way we will break. Again, this is a huge takeaway for us. He says, if we rebelled or if under the strain we grew upset, it meant we have failed the test. But if we responded with an extra spurt of energy and affirmed a bright, positive attitude, we found his test immeasurably strengthening. Anything that now that we are all here, on this path, we are disciples of Yogananda, everything that, and we have, taken the vow that, and he has taken the responsibility. When we take the discipleship vow, we hand over this life to him, and he is taking over the responsibility of this life. So all that comes to us in life, the tests, if we take it as Master is allowing me to go through this, and then this is where the thing is, which direction do we break? Are we saying, oh God, why this happened, why should this happen, why me? Or we say, okay, Master, what is the lesson in this for me? And then put out that energy with his support. You help me, tell me what I need to do in this. More we are open to this, we pass the test. And that is where he says, when he realized that Master was playing with them, that sometimes Master plays with us also, right? Master is playing with them, he started laughing. He says, I was joking with you. The test ends there. The moment we realize, oh, this was a lesson, this is what. Everything on the spiritual path, Swamiji says, is about attitudes. And everything is about attitudes. So we need to be watchful of our attitude. The seva that we get, the things that happen in our lives, how do we take it? What is the attitude with which we approach it? The more we bring Master into the picture and say, okay, Master, what do you want me to do? Or, what is the lesson? So how do we approach it? Which way would we break? Watch this. I mean, I think this can be a long-term takeaway for this lifetime, in fact. Anything that comes, just bring this in mind. Which way would we break? And then we approach it with all awareness. Okay, in the foregoing test, he says, he was he wanted us to learn the lesson to resist the thought of fatigue. Master always used to say that, never affirm fatigue. And that is where the greater the will, the greater the flow of energy. In the energization exercise, that's a major axiom that he had given. How to bring in more energy. It wasn't just for doing energization exercises, but in everything in our life. What is the attitude with which we work? Greater the will. And when we say will, it is not the grim will, but willingness. There will be a greater flow of energy. The moment we say no, the moment we say why me, what are we doing? We are blocking that energy. The energy, there's a stop. It doesn't enter us. The moment we say, okay, let's see, I'll try my best, whatever happens. Swamiji always used to say yes to life. The moment we say yes, we open ourselves to that flow of prana more, and help from God, the grace from the help from Guru, all flows in. And the next one, where there are so many lessons these young guys were getting, the whole point is they were open to it. Everything they were thinking, why is this happening? When they were getting that food, where he said that our meager, I mean the he says the dry sandwich that had perhaps been waved in the general vicinity of an open jar of peanut butter. There was nothing. So, and one people can say, oh, I have been working the whole day and this is all I'm getting. What is this? They are nothing. They are not providing us any food. Or they start laughing. What a banquet. What was he trying to teach them? What comes by itself, let it come. Life will keep throwing things at us. Acceptance, that's a first step, it is also a yum, the truthfulness when we say non-lying. That is a major, it is a yum that even the life, whatever is there in our life, rather than wishing it away, rather than hoping that, no, it shouldn't be like this, but should have been like that, it's lying. The first step is accepting things as they are. Whatever, even Master, when he has given us divine will healing and the healing prayers and all, but he said that, you say this is my will, but may thy will prevail when you are praying. Because what is important is try to understand what is trying to happen here, rather than saying no, this shouldn't have happened, why me, why is it happening, oh, if only this was happening, if only that was not there like this. Rather than acceptance, that's the first step for any healing to start happening, for that matter, or anything, any things to change in our lives. Is the first step is our attitudes need to change, and that the acceptance is the main thing. So whatever comes of itself, let it come. That is the first thing. Another, greater the will, the greater the flow of energy. Silence is the altar of God, spirit, and then whatever comes of itself, let it come. And he says, even if it was a meager fare, it gave us adequate food for meditation, because they didn't eat well, but they meditated well. So, again, that attitude, that seeing positive in everything. Okay, so, and he says that shortly after the test of 2x4, they passed the test. No, they found it. They realized, oh, Master was playing with us. Immediately after that, he started inviting them more. That's the gift they got. Just by passing that test, Master started inviting them indoors to listen to him. What blessing! While he was dictating his writings, they were sitting and taking so much. The truths I learned during these sessions were invaluable, he says. So, also were a few of the lessons I received, some of them less weighty. And one of them, he says that, where Master is playing with him and using those guns and all. Again and again, Master is trying, in the previous chapter also, we saw that what Jesus said. Again, he's trying to say that, God comes to, be childlike. That doesn't mean childish. Master was not childish. He was full of wisdom. He was, and when he had full understanding of what Swamiji was going through. He was that intellectual young American boy, all that. But he wanted to open him. That it's a childlike, the love, the openness to God, and that is what he was trying to inculcate in Swami Kriyananda, right? So he says, he again quotes Jesus Christ, "Suffer little children to come unto me, for such is the kingdom of God." This is again a very important learning. And here he's saying that, I was being very intellectual. And Swamiji is saying that I thought, wisdom was about, it's a very serious matter, that saints are always very grim. But he found himself, in the company of the saint, this self-realized master, who was joyful. In fact, Swamiji, much later, after Master passed, had taken some Mahasamadhi, he had come to India. He went, visited a lot of saints. He said in Odisha, he met a saint. And, there was when he was sitting with him, there was a beautiful sunset. And Swamiji said, "What a beautiful sunset." And the saint said, "Oh, you should not enjoy all that." So he said, "Not even a sunset?" He said, "No, no, you shouldn't." And Swamiji thought that was such a dry way of, being. I mean, his master didn't teach like that. Master was like, God has created. This is God's creation. How can you not enjoy it? He said, instead, enjoy it with God. Oh, what a beautiful creation. I mean, there is this song also Swamiji has shared. He's made that song. Maybe sometime later, next class, we can play it. Where the saint came, I think, to Ramakrishna Paramahamsa's Ramakrishna Paramahamsa's ashram, I think. And every day morning he would get up and come out, and there is this river flowing, beautiful sunlight, birds chirping, and he would clap his hand and say, "Good job, God, good job." That's such a beautiful way of enjoying this world, God's creation, with God. And Swamiji has written it's a sweet song. We will find out and play it in the next class. Okay, Ranjana is saying, can you explain what is "suffer little children to come unto me, for such is the kingdom of God"? Now, like how we had discussed in the last class, the story of Shabri. Her love for God was very simple. I mean, it wasn't some, she was quoting big things and all. Very simple, very childlike. And God's kingdom, God is only looking at the purity of heart. Suffer little children to come unto me, to come to me. You don't say that, "Oh, no, 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 no. All this is not, you have to be very intellectual. It's all grim, it's all wisdom." And that is what he's trying to say, that it's purity of heart is what God is looking for. The love. When we look at children, when we see they're so open, they're so full of what they're doing, they're so concentrated on just being, completely into that and happy about it. Something very simple, as Master showed Swamiji just now, Swamiji is this intellectual person, and Master did all that toys and all. Swamiji is completely astonished. But what was he trying to prove? That, don't be so grim. Don't be so intellectual. Open the heart. What is more important is that natural love of heart needs to blossom. And that is what God is looking for. So, and he says, do we have time? Almost ending. Okay. One more amazing thing that Masters, but it was his complete inner freedom, he says. In the deepest matters, he maintained the simplicity and light-hearted innocence of a child, even in the deepest matter. In severe trials, he could find cause for joy. That is what being childlike is. That's what he's trying to. Swamiji has explained this. This is what we all need to learn. Why? When we study about Master, what is it that we are trying to see? They are avatar, right? Master is an avatar. When we study about them, these scriptures, it is not to say, "Oh, Master was so great." Master has come to show us this is what we all need to aspire for. If you want to find God, this is the way. This is the only way. So the more we ourselves open ourselves to this, how do I handle this? Okay, trial. In a trial, what do I? We are in the midst of a trial. We will be. So it is. We will be. We have to deal with it. But the more we practice it during good times of our life, then it will come naturally for when we are actually facing a trial. So this is a constant practice. It is not one fine day I'm going to do it. When the trials come, I will do it. It's a constant practice to be joyful, do kriya joyfully, right? Do everything, trying to tune into that inner joy and not bounce up and down with what the world is offering us, being happy when things are going good and then falling crashing down when things go crashing down, rather than withdrawing into the center, into our own center where we are joyful. That is where who we are. We are peace, we are love. The more we live from our center, the more we will be able to tune into these higher um, um, aspects of ourselves that Guru is guiding us to through his example. So again, let us read this. One of the most amazing things about Master was his complete inner freedom. In the deepest matters, he maintained the simplicity and light-hearted innocence of a child. In so this is actually the problem with this world, they had, I think it was Swamiji's talk only, when he said that there was this experiment a group had done where, people tend to, when there the words that are being used are very technical and very difficult words, people say, oh, that is a very good one. So what had happened is some scientist or some philosopher, I don't know. So some essays were presented, and one essay was very simple words, and they said, "Oh no, not this. This one is very, very nice. The one that seemed to be very, using very difficult words and very difficult to understand for anyone." So what this group did was took the most simple of the essay, and without changing the content, they just changed the words so that a more difficult word was being used for to explain the same thing. And they presented, nothing new was being presented in that essay, only words were changed to make it look very heavy. And when it was represented to those judges, they said, oh, this is too deep, this is very good. So the problem is, this intellectual people is, they think that that is what is very deep, or it's anything simple is not good enough. But here Master is trying to prove spirituality is not like that. You want to more people to understand simplicity, light-hearted innocence. That's what God is looking for. He's not looking for some I know it all type of intellectual person. He is looking for a purity of heart, and that is what he was displaying, and that is all we need to the more open, receptive to God's flow, to Guru's guidance. And he says, in severest of trials, he could find cause for joy. Swamiji also, when they had that forest fire and Jyotishji went, everything gone. All that they had done, only one temple was left. Jyotishji, that night he went close. He thought, let me go and talk to Swamiji. Swamiji was kind of sleeping. And he heard him saying something. He went close and Swamiji was joy, 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 joy. That's all he said. How is that possible? Because he was accepting everything as coming from God. If this is what Divine Mother wants, it is she who had given. If she takes it out, it's okay. And when we can have that attitude, how can joy not be there? Joy in everything that she gives. So I think we should stop here. We still have a lot of discussion, even this part that we have already read. So the next one, we will start from, we finish reading the chapter and then discuss the rest. So with that, if somebody has posted put it in the group also, so that we, well done, Lords. Thank you, Aprajit. Yeah, we will hear that in the next session also. Let us start with that. And in the group also, if you can post it, we can all listen to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.